This is Toronto, Canada's largest city, which in the past 10 years has radically reinvented itself as a lakeside destination to rival Chicago. It's the country's banking capital. It's one of the world's great multi-ethnic centres, and it hosts a hugely successful film festival. There is something about Toronto that gets under your skin. I can honestly say I have never experienced a multi-ethnic community so well integrated. And in these difficult times of stumbling economies and depressed real estate, this is one place that's absolutely bucking the trend. Toronto just continues to grow and flourish, even in the bleakest of times. And this sense of confidence is just one of the things that makes it so attractive. But now you can tell I'm something of a fan of this city, and one of the reasons I like it so much is they just get things right. How often do we read building destroyed to make way for car park? Well, here's an example of a car park that's been knocked down to make way for a fantastic building. The Ritz-Carlton in Toronto's financial district is part of a clutch of new builds that include Shangri-La and Four Seasons. And it's not like any other Ritz-Carlton you may have seen. There's nothing fusty here. The great Canadian outdoors sweeps in with a natural palette of creams and maple. There are even maple leaves in the floor of the foyer. And the indoor-outdoor feel is especially prevalent in the airy spa. This hotel is a great base for a visit to the city. You get a sense of the location from the views. Every room is north or south facing, so it's quite simply city or lake, with icons like the CN Tower and Rogers Centre, home to Major League Baseball and football, almost at the bedside table. The tower is the city's most famous landmark, and for 34 years it was the tallest freestanding structure in the world. Its 360 restaurant is a great place to eat, taking in the amazing 360-degree panorama of the city. But now you can get even closer to the fantastic view.
Guys, we're going to be walking on this walkway, which is 1.5 meters wide, or about 5 feet wide. All right, good.
This is the highest, hippest, craziest way of seeing Toronto. I'm doing the Edge Walk.
OMG! It is so windy! And it's freezing!
The shoreline of Lake Ontario has changed massively in the last 200 years. All of what we're looking at here is landfill done in the 19th century to accommodate the railways. But what really interests me is what's over there. You see that green patch over by the highway? That is Fort York, part of the original settlement of Toronto. And it was there in April 1813 that the Americans launched an attack during the War of 1812. Fort York is a little slice of Toronto's past that's managed to survive the huge changes that have taken place over the last 200 years. It still looks as if the nearby highway is trying to get its hands on it. The fort represents Canada's largest collection of War of 1812 buildings. The Americans landed around 1,700 troops under the command of General Zebulon Pike. He advanced towards the fort under the protective cover of cannon fire from American ships on the lake. A small defensive Canadian force of 700 was pushed back and decided to abandon the fort and retreat with a bang. The retreating Canadians decided to blow up the gunpowder magazine. They got more than they bargained for.
Absolutely. The magazine was located behind that tree, dug into the shore of Lake Ontario. And it contained about 30,000 pounds of black powder, highly explosive. So when it blew, it had a devastating impact on the American forces.
Give us some idea of the size of it.
The gunpowder magazine contained, about 30,000 pounds of black powder. Very, very explosive. And so when it went off, it had an explosive force of about 20 tons of TNT. And compare that to the Oklahoma City bombing of a few years ago. That was about 2.5 tons of TNT. So this was a massive, massive, unprecedented bang.
The bodies and limbs of soldiers were hurled over the fort. General Pike was killed. One surgeon worked 48 hours non-stop on what he described as his fellow creatures mashed and mangled in every part. The Americans picked themselves up and pushed on to York, but as the negotiations for surrender got underway, they apparently made a discovery that pushed them over the edge. The story goes that some soldiers discovered a scalp hanging near the Speaker's chair in the Parliament building. Talk about a red rag to a bull. Enraged by this, the American troops went on the rampage. The Anglican church and local library were ransacked, the town's fire engine and printing press destroyed, and the Parliament buildings went up in smoke. Even the mace was stolen. This is it. It wasn't returned to Canada until 1934. It's highly unlikely there was any scalp involved. It's even been suggested that what was discovered was the Speaker's wig, which nowadays sounds quite funny. And it's one of the many tales being told here in Canada's most vibrant city as it celebrates the bicentennial of the War of 1812.